Returning to our top story, the U.S. is going after China for cyber espionage. Today, a federal grand jury indicted 5 Chinese military officers on 31 counts, including economic espionage and theft of trade secrets. The officials are accused of hacking into the computer systems of several major companies, including Westinghouse Electric, U.S. Steel, and Alcoa. With us now is privacy, data, and security expert Alysa Hutnik. Alysa, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Michael.
Why are these indictments so significant?
Well, it's the first time that the U.S. government has formally accused members of another country of cyber theft. But what I will tell you is that those in the data security community, this clock has been ticking for some time, because you have over a year ago, a forensic expert had published a report that really linked down to the building, this unit in China's military, that was causing breaches to over 140 U.S. companies. And so you take that, you take the economic costs of what data breaches are causing U.S. companies. There are reports that put that at $20 billion to $120 billion. You take those 2 points together, and really that was putting momentum on the U.S. to take some sort of formal action, and that's what we saw today.
Well, as expected, the Chinese government had a pretty harsh response to these indictments today. Official statement read in part, quote, "This U.S. move, which is based on fabricated facts, grossly violates the basic norms governing international relations and jeopardizes China-U.S. cooperation and mutual trust." They say, Alysa, that it's not true. How strong is the U.S. government's evidence in this case?
So I certainly can't speculate on what the DOJ relied on to put together these indictments, but what I can say is that the Mandiant report that was published that I mentioned over a year ago was very detailed. It went over 3 years of investigations on over 140 different companies across 20 different sectors. And what was clear from that, I've worked with Mandiant on other data breaches unrelated to that, but they're thorough and they're sophisticated. And what I would imagine is that there's quite a bit of evidence that links down to not only that specific military unit, but specific breaches and the steps to get there.
It seems to be a pretty much foregone conclusion that none of these men will see the inside of a U.S. courtroom to face these charges. So if that is the case, why even bring the charges? Is it just symbolic?
I don't think it's just symbolic. I actually think that there are two reasons that are very important here. One, it's the message that gets communicated to the global world, that if you are in China, if you are Russia, if you are a hacker anywhere else, unless you want to see your face on a most wanted sign every time you go to try to travel, you might think twice about hacking into the U.S. against U.S. businesses, because America's going to put their muscle behind enforcement. But the other thing that I would point out is that for U.S. businesses, this is yet another real big spotlight on the fact that companies, individuals and organizations are determined to hack into U.S. businesses, and that unless you put the resources to protecting your trade secrets, to protecting consumer data, you're likely to be a victim of a data breach.
Well, the Department of Justice said today that charges such as these against foreign countries will be part of the new normal. Do you anticipate that being the case?
I do, but what I've been seeing in the type of work that I do is for the better part of a decade, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission has been enforcing, as part of its consumer protection mission, has been enforcing against U.S. businesses for not sufficiently protecting data in their control. And the FTC has said they will continue to actively enforce in that area. What I think we're seeing is another side to that arsenal. So now the DOJ is going after the choke points. Where are the big sources that are causing breaches to the U.S. businesses, and going to go after those choke points, which may well be, in fact, China or Russia or other hackers and other organizations in other countries around the world.
Let me ask you this. Other than these types of indictments, is there anything else that the U.S. government can do to try to crack down on this type of cyber espionage?
It's a good question. Clearly, we're going to see their legwork so that it's not just talk, that they are, they take data security and cyber theft seriously. But what I also expect to see is that there's an education mission to part of this, because the U.S. can go after these hackers. Businesses can put in the resources to try to protect against foreseeable breaches, but consumers also, there will be data breaches. So if consumers can get educated, and part of what I think the government's going to do and continue to do is to communicate, use smarter passwords and be careful about what you post online. So I think you have that consumer education aspect to it, you have the business responsibility aspect to it, and then that third side, what we're seeing today and what we're going to continue to see, is the government enforcing against that type of unlawful conduct.
Privacy, data, and security expert Alysa Hutnik, thanks for the insight.